you want to hit 4 wins every day. We've got 4 pillars of operating at peak performance as a human being. You've got the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. Every single day, what I highly recommend anybody does is, actually, I had a client the other day and she's like, what is my homework? And I was like, well, if you hit 1 pillar every single day, meeting yourself at the level that you're at and just kind of leveling it by 1. So physical. It doesn't have to be so extreme. Like, maybe what type of movement feels that you can be consistent today to show up for based on where you are emotionally. Maybe it's going for a walk, or maybe it's actually going to the gym, or maybe it's just doing some mobility exercises on the ground for 10 minutes. The second is the mental. What tools do you currently have for your mindset? Maybe it's just writing a few intentions out for the day on how you want to show up. First thing you want to do is maybe just like write out the negative thoughts and then write the opposite of the thought. So did you put time into building out your mental repetition, the audiobooks that you're listening to, the music that you're listening to, the books, the conversations that you're having, just to do an audit and then showing up, whether it being 10 minutes or an hour? The other is the emotional. Do you have any tools to help you process your negative thoughts and emotions on a daily basis? Just something to look at too, something to be aware about. And then the other one would be the spiritual. Are you sitting time with God? Are you meditating? Are you praying? Are you building community with other people? Are you having spiritual conversations with people? So even reading certain books, are you spending time in the Word? And it just depends on like what you're ready to receive, like in the season that you currently are in right now. Hold on, my earbud's gonna fall out. I actually did have a conversation with somebody on that the other day, and that was the homework I gave her, and it made sense for her because I said, I want you to just be honest on like what do you currently have, and then let's maximize your resources. Because are you actually maximizing the resources that you currently have versus trying to like add more things? Let's like go back. And something that I did a post on the other day was like, it's not always about like what you think you should be doing. It's what are you not doing? What do you know that you're not maximizing your resources for, and what are you not showing up for based on what you have? Like, what are you not putting into daily practice? Kind of like, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it. Okay, well, let's look at the I know what to do, let's audit it, and how can we start to integrate it on a day-by-day basis? And every single day you're putting in those repetitions of the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. When it comes to consistency, if you want to stay consistent with something, the first thing is you got to write it into your schedule. Everything has to have a home because you're going to forget about it. It's not a habit. You haven't embodied it yet. It's not quite a discipline. So one of the things that we've created is something called a commitment contract. And then throughout the year, everybody's all hyped up and they've been super strategic. But then as the year goes on, there's going to be distractions. There's going to be opportunities. There's going to be things that are going to pull you away from your target, from your vision, from your dreams, from your goals. And it's important because sometimes things are not for this season. You have to close browsers down. Kind of explain like your goals is having like all these browsers up on your computer screen. And if you're about to give one of the biggest presentations of your life and you need to have high-speed internet, what do you have to do? You have to close down the browsers in order to have like high-speed internet. Same thing with you stepping into your personal power and operating from a high space of energy is like once you complete things, so that commitment contract of staying consistent with what you do have in the season that you're in will just keep you focused on that. And commitment is just staying true to what you said you were going to do long after the emotion you have set it in. But we have certain things called the time management productivity course, and that's where you actually get strategic on building out a daily schedule. And we have 2 schedules you have flexibility within structure, and you build out 2 productivity schedules per week, and you have to put it in there. Everything needs a home or else it's just forgotten. So when we're talking about overwhelm or overthinking, that actually is subcategorized into the procrastination. There's a procrastination, which is actually a very common habit for high achieving personality traits. And all procrastination is just the inability to process your negative thoughts and emotions around a specific task. And overwhelm is one out of the 3 negative emotions that people have a very hard time like processing and digesting. Every single emotion has specific tools to be utilized so that you can still be able to execute and move efficiently, even if you are feeling overwhelmed or you're not feeling safe based on past decisions, or if you're just hyper distracted mentally internally and externally. There's a lot of moving pieces when you're building a business as an entrepreneur and constantly having to make decisions. So specifically, if we're talking about overwhelm, there's something called time and intensity. And how you would handle overwhelm is you'd want to make it as easy as possible, and also having a staple time. For me, it's always 10 minutes. I ask myself, like, the moment that I'm like, I can't do this, I don't have time, I've got too many things on my plate, I don't even know where to start, because that's the inner dialogue. So if you're wanting to really be able to execute on task and get on the other side of the bridge and achieve the damn thing and reach your goals and your dreams, you have to learn how to handle your own objections. Specifically, befriending overwhelm. Overwhelm is just like getting you to the task at hand. And that, when you tell yourself, like, okay, what can I do? Can you do 10 minutes? I could do 10 minutes. How can I make it as easy as possible? And then that just takes the pressure off. A lot of people go into paralysis or freeze mode because of all the pressure, that it becomes almost like a really foggy gray space. So it's almost like you can have clarity and remove the fogginess, remove the gray space, so you have clarity on like just getting into the momentum of doing something. And when you get to that project or that task that you've been procrastinating, you're going to get like a second wind of energy. It's going to give you this momentum. And typically people end up doing a lot more than 10 minutes, but at least you've built that self-trust that said, hey, I did what I said I was going to do. And that's really what I notice charges people and then gets them into that flow state. Yeah, no, because there's so many different, a lot of this work when you're dealing with human behavior, it's like this tree. Like there's so many different ways to be able to like maneuver through a specific situation, specifically if you're feeling stuck, because there's a lot of moving pieces. Stuckness can be because you're in freeze mode because maybe you just had something traumatic really happen in your life and you just don't, and you're not feeling capable of dealing with whatever you need to do with work or business, and you don't know how to compartmentalize your personal life from your professional life. So that's number one. The biggest thing I will say is taking care of the body, because when you move the body, you start to move energy. Emotion is just energy in motion. So when we're still trying to like move through a project or a task and we've got literally nothing in us and we feel mentally like blocked, like there's like nothing coming out, there's no creativity. One of the things I personally do, and I've seen the results even with my clients, is like take a 15-minute movement break. Go for a walk, do some breathing. Most of the time, like we're sitting or we're not moving around. And what that does physically with the body is it cuts off oxygen to the brain. So even if you are doing something like a walking treadmill, because I have a standing desk, I've got a treadmill underneath the desk. I've got a park right next to me. I do live in Miami, so I do have the luxury of like going outside. It's not like crazy weather or anything like that. And I would say the first thing is like that, but there's just different tools for different things, because sometimes you really can't leave your space. So I have some clients and they'll start doing some EFT work, which is still movement. It's still tapping and regulating the nervous system to get something. Some people have trampolines. It just really depends on that. But if you notice, the common threads that I just gave with those three examples was the physical touch, kind of like activating something in the body, because you get movement so that oxygen can just start circulating to the brain. And one of our greatest assets as entrepreneurs is the ability to think and to think sharp. One of the biggest reasons why high achievers that have all these check marks checked off their list, and they've maybe reached heightened levels of external success but still feel unfulfilled, is most of the time they haven't gained clarity on the expectation, because standards and expectations are totally different, and core values. What I realized is a lot of high achievers haven't gotten clear on their core values, and therefore they're not aligning the right people, places, and things to still achieve that like external stuff. And they have no idea on what they expect to feel like once they hit those check marks. So if you want to have a certain amount of money in your bank account, like what is it that you're really seeking? Is it freedom? Is it time freedom? Is it for you to be able to take care of yourself, to be able to take care of your family? Is it for you to have peace of mind so you're not worried about money anymore or when things are coming in and out of your account? Is it maybe you're wanting to get your body and you're wanting to, well, what do you expect is going to happen when you achieve your body goals, do you feel like you're going to have more confidence when you do that? What's your belief system when you set these type of goals? And what I realize is like, it needs to be done backwards in order for people to feel higher levels of fulfillment and satisfaction and contentment when it comes to the goal achievement process. And what I mean by this is setting something called intrinsic goals, and that's what we call your inner world. So when you have these outer extrinsic goals, the outer world, the achievement of the thing, what do you really like wanting to feel in your inner world? And then from there, we reverse engineer the process so it becomes a funnel system that you're aligning the right people, places, and things for your highest and greatest good in the pursuit of achievement of that goal or that dream or that vision, because there's multiple paths to an end destination. A lot of times people take a path that's not for their highest and greatest good, where I see a lot of people in the hustle culture where there's a lot of forcefulness versus alignment. And then you kind of put that bridge together where you have harmony between your inner world and your outer world, and you're just bringing more joy into the process, and that everything is always worth it. Because that's the biggest thing I see is they're like, okay, I achieved all these things, Tanya, but like, I don't really know if it was worth it. I don't really know if it was worth sacrificing my relationships, not being present with my children. I don't know if it was worth it, me sacrificing my health to put in a few extra hours a day to get more of these projects done. And so that's where there's that disconnect of that fulfillment and that satisfaction, that contentment, and even the joy, like bringing joy back into the process of the journey. So when you're totally confused on the intrinsic world, because maybe you've been desensitized and you put your feelings to the side, which has been a lot of people for a long time. They're not emotionally available. Most of the time they're numbed out with like medication or prescription just to like push through, get one more thing done. And then you're left looking in the mirror and you're like, I don't even know like who this person is anymore. I don't even know like what peace feels like. I don't know, because I've been operating in anxiety for majority of my life, majority of my day, or worry. And it becomes like a habit, like it becomes a part of who you are. So when we do something called a T-chart, there's a clarity exercise. I have a lot of actual, very practical exercises that really help my clients. And you start with experiences, because people know what they've experienced. They know what it feels like for their predominant feelings of how they're showing up every single day and the predominant emotions that they're embodying every single day. So on the T-chart, we just get clarity on like, what do you not want to feel anymore? How are you predominantly operating that you just don't want to experience this anymore because like you're very familiar with this feeling? And then what we do is when you have clarity on what you don't want, so we're leveraging off the negative thoughts and emotions, the undesired feelings and emotions, because you know what those feel like. You've had those experiences probably a lot more than what you've wanted. And eventually they just kind of become your embodiment. They just become like your normal. So when you make the decision that, hold on, I changed my mind. I don't want to live life like this anymore. I don't think this is actually living, at least not living life on my terms. Then you would write the opposite. So if you've predominantly been operating with anxiety and worry, which is majority of high achievers, you'd be like, okay, well, what's the antonym of that? Peace of mind. And then we start getting into something with belief work, which a lot of times people don't even know that it's possible for them. So then we get into something called possibility work. And then from there, we, build out the bridge, which I do have practical things like the habit builders. We build out habits so they can start to feel for the first time. So if somebody is emotionally unavailable because they've been so desensitized their whole life of pushing through and not respecting or honoring their feelings, because your feelings are a navigational system, they are a guide. And it does get a little tricky because I've had podcasts and people have asked, well, what did they say follow your feelings? I'm like, well, if you're changing the character of who you are, because you do have to become somebody brand new and there's things you do have to overcome, you want to learn to like hold space for your feelings and respect your feelings, but at the same time, not allow your feelings to detour you from your goals, your dreams, and your visions. Because if you don't feel like it, but at the same time, you still want to achieve the goal, it's a different way of tackling those type of emotions. And so you want to like just like hold space for them, embody them, have healthy tools, healthy stimulation to process them, and then still be able to execute on your dreams, goals, and desires that God has intentionally placed inside of your heart. Man, you're talking to advanced now. Typically, there's a lot of layers of things to get people to be more intuitive. A lot of high achievers are overthinkers. We have to make decisions and we have to make them quickly. So we are predominantly in our mind. The goal is to teach you to be a heart and mind coherent. So to learn to become on your own team and understand the discernment, and then as women, we have the womb. So it's the heart, the mind, and the womb coherence where all aspects are on the same team. Men don't have a womb, so just the heart and the mind. Whenever you are overthinking, which can get you out of your intuition. So if you're talking about the discernment of higher consciousness, because there's 3 categories really. A lot of people, so if you're somebody, I'll give an example. If you're somebody and you're like, man, I really want to change my life. I'm not satisfied. I'm not content. I'm not fulfilled. I just feel like I'm going through the movements robotically. I'm hustling. I'm doing all this stuff, but there's something missing. Then and you're not, or your thoughts, actions, your habits, and your behaviors are not in alignment with who you want to truly be. That's called cognitive dissonance. So there's a disconnect from how you're showing up to who you want to be. Then when you start to actually invest in yourself and do the personal growth and development work, and you're going at a space where you're making the changes and you're making the progress, but yet you haven't yet seen the return on investment, because it doesn't always happen at the pace that we want it, but you know that you're taking the right action steps. You know that you're showing up. That's called cognitive consonance. So every day you put in the repetitions to strengthen that. And then it's about like 8 months to a year to really embody that new version of yourself until you don't have to like always think about putting in the effort. And that's called the unconscious cognizance. So that's when you just are who you are, because 95% of how we show up is through the subconscious. So when you're in the journey of change and transformation, and it's for your highest and greatest good, and you're connected to your heart and your mind as an asset versus a liability, there is a timeline of what they say of how long it takes for you to really change the way that you're thinking, the way that you're moving, your behaviors, and just overall just like how you're showing up is really about that timeline. 30 days to find your flow state, kind of like plug and play, give yourself new experiences. About 90 days to build the foundation of those new habits, thoughts, actions, and behaviors. And then about 1 year to really embody them, depending on like how many layers you got to overcome. If you've got severe attachments or addictions, or even addictions to old identities. It's not always through substances.